Good morning. Welcome to the 94th Annual AZ Water Association Annual Conference and our second consecutive, and hopefully last for a while, virtual edition. I'm Doug Kobrick, AZ Water Board President for 2020-21, and I'm pretty sure I'm the only president in AZ Water history who has never actually presided over an in-person meeting of the association. Despite the challenges of the past 15 months or so, AZ Water has continued to press on and deliver on our mission to advocate for Arizona's water, connect our professionals at events like this conference, educate our members at events like this conference, and inspire environmental stewardship. It's been a tough year, but there's no need to dwell on all those negatives right here. Instead, I would like to point out three basic positives that emerged from this difficult period. First of all, we are still here. We have remained open for business as AZ Water. Our committees are active. We continue to deliver content. Our membership, our finances are healthy. In fact, the state of AZ Water is remarkably solid, and that is thanks to the hard work and the dedication of all of our members. Secondly, we've learned how to use new tools like this virtual conference that will serve us well going forward. This is one great example, and I'll talk more about what's coming up over the next 3 days in a few minutes. Third, we've seen just how essential the water industry is. Hopefully the greater society has seen that as well in all of its facets, and we have risen to the challenge of being essential in a crisis. In my view, one of the best lessons of this pandemic is an increased appreciation by all of us of just how many people out there actually are essential, often underpaid, often underappreciated, and the water industry is right up there at the top of the list as an essential function of our society for sure. So as always, albeit a little differently from what used to be the usual, it's great for all of us to be here together, and we have a great conference teed up and ready to go. The conference is the result of months of planning and hard work by many of our fellow members and staff. And before we go any further, I want to pause and recognize just a few of them, also recognizing that many names will be left out of this brief list, but you know who you are, and we thank all of you. So first of all, thanks to our annual conference chair, our past president, Tim Tomier, our conference program committee chair, Amy Baker, and vice chair, Tawanda Heap, and their army of dedicated volunteers on that committee. And then also our event coordinator, Lisa Culbert, who manages to rustle these things together every year, along with our executive director, Suzanne Durkin Bighorn, and our association coordinator, Shana Schwartz. So thanks to all those folks and many more who worked so hard to bring this event off. And there's a lot of great stuff in store. A lot of great content, both over the next 3 days live and then also recorded for downloading and viewing at your convenience all through the month of April. So this morning, we're going to hear from our executive director, Suzanne Durkin Bighorn. We'll hear from John Kamik on behalf of our Kachina sponsor, Tucson Water, and we'll hear from our AWWA National Representative, Leanne Jones. That will be followed after a short intermission by a panel discussion on Arizona water policy with an all-star lineup facilitated by Catherine Sorensen. Operator training sessions will be live all afternoon from 1 to 4:15. Something new this year is our virtual exhibition. Please support our sponsors and exhibitors by visiting their virtual exhibit booths where you can access information about their products and services. And yes, you can be on the lookout for giveaways. There is still swag available in the virtual environment from the exhibition. And one additional note related to that, we owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to our sponsors who were so generous and supportive of AZ Water. This year, despite us being just virtual, we have attained a record level of sponsor support for this conference, above and beyond anything we've had in the past. And I would just ask everyone to be sure to be aware of our sponsors and to thank them when you get the opportunity to do that. So that's a brief program preview. First up will be a greeting by video from a few people you may have heard of.
Hi everyone, I'm Mesa Mayor John Giles, and I'm excited to join you for Arizona Water Professionals Week. I just want to take a moment to recognize the essential water professionals on the other side of the screen, especially the City of Mesa members. Thank you to everyone who kept essential services flowing to our community during this health crisis. Your work is vital and valued. Safe, reliable water means everything to our community. And in Mesa, we are committed to sustainability and to being great stewards of one of our most precious resources, water. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you today, and have a great conference.
Welcome to the Arizona Water Association Conference. Those of us living in our beautiful Sonoran Desert home know water is the lifeblood of our community. We all understand the importance of working together to make sure our water is safe and reliable for our community, and that we create robust partnerships prioritizing sustainability, green infrastructure, innovation, and equity. A particular thanks to our water workers who are essential personnel and worked to provide water services without interruption during the COVID-19 pandemic. We appreciate all you do. There are certainly challenges we face as our population increases and drought continues. But by working together to manage our water resources and supporting opportunities for water workers in different sectors, I am confident we are up to the task. Enjoy your conference.
Water is a lifeblood for Yuma and the entire state of Arizona. Our water industry professionals are essential workers that have provided day in and day out quality drinking water through this COVID-19 pandemic. The water industry provides great career opportunities, those interested in STEM and a lot of different other trades. This is one of the things that makes our community so successful in our growth in the Desert Southwest. To Yuma, we consume 8.8 billion gallons of water every year to serve our growing community. That kind of volume requires quality professionals.
Hello, I'm Surprise Mayor Skip Hall, and I'd like to welcome you to the 94th Annual Arizona Water Conference. As you know, the Arizona Water Conference is an event to celebrate, educate, and inspire you, our essential water environmental professionals who make sure that our water is safe and reliable. Your commitment to training and continued education is a vital reason our communities have the ability to grow and thrive. And this past year, your dedication ensured that water services continued uninterrupted to hospitals and homes when essential workers and families needed it most. I encourage you to take the knowledge you received from this year's conference back to your community and continue to innovate in how we can maintain and deliver our water services. Thank you for your service to Arizona, and enjoy the conference.
Hello, I'm Chandler Mayor Kevin Hartke, and I am honored to welcome you to the AZ Water Association Conference. A clean, safe, and sustainable water supply is vital to the long-term prosperity of every city, and your work as an Arizona water professional is essential to achieving this. Thank you for working tirelessly through the pandemic to ensure seamless service to Arizonans. This week, during the Arizona Water Professionals Week, we celebrate you and highlight the essential service that you provide. Thank you again for your service, and enjoy the conference.
Hi, I'm Tempe Mayor Corey Woods, and I'm here to welcome you to the 94th Annual Virtual Arizona Water Association Conference. First and foremost, I would like to say a heartfelt thank you to everyone for participating in this conference. It is so important to continue to connect and engage even in this virtual world. So again, thank you so much for showing up. During the last year, our country went through a difficult exercise of thinking about who our essential workers are. I am proud to say that in Tempe, all water and wastewater employees were deemed as essential personnel, receiving the necessary resources to stay safe and putting in protections in case they or their family became ill. So often, we take water for granted. For instance, turning on your sink to brush your teeth, something we do every day, twice a day. And how often do we think about the work that goes behind making this possible? In Arizona in particular, water will dictate our economy and our future. The CAP Canal, for instance, is a scientific and engineering wonder. This organization is vital in educating our youth, encouraging creativity, and developing opportunities so that we can continue to make improvements in how we source and distribute this valued resource. Again, thank you so much for everything you do for our state. Your hard work and expertise does not go unnoticed. Enjoy this week of learning and appreciation.
So it's great to hear those expressions of support from the leaders of our municipalities, of which our utilities are such important parts. And, we definitely need our leaders' awareness and commitment to make progress on Arizona's water issues. So it's really encouraging to hear those words. Okay, next up, we are going to hear from AZ Water's Executive Director, Suzanne Durkin Bighorn. Suzanne joined us 1 year ago, just in time for the COVID pandemic. And even though we've been operating in the virtual space for about 99% of the time that Suzanne has been with us, she's done a great job of getting to know folks in AZ Water. She brings many years of experience leading nonprofits and community organizations, along with a lot of great ideas and energy. And she's off to a great start as our executive director. So let's hear from Suzanne.
Good morning. It is my privilege and pleasure to welcome you on behalf of AZ Water today. We are delighted to have you with us to participate and share in our 94th annual conference. Thank you for coming. We are immensely proud to be able to host this event and thrilled that once again you are joining us in this virtual setting. Before we get started, I would like to recognize this year's conference committee for making this event come together so smoothly. Tim Tomyer and Amy Baker for their leadership, Lisa Colbert, our event coordinator, and so many others who generously volunteered your time and expertise. Thank you.
AZ Water is committed to advocating for Arizona's water through bold leadership, connecting professionals, providing education, and inspiring environmental stewardship. We want our members, regardless of their profession in the water and wastewater industry, to achieve their full potential. Our task is to make it possible. Our mission is to sustain a vibrant Arizona through safe, reliable water. Through the commitment of our board of directors, council and committee chairs, and all of you, our members, AZ Water has continued to thrive throughout the pandemic. As Arizona's leading association for water and wastewater professionals, you have helped us to continue our mission and adapt our programming during the last year. This year, AZ Water held 99 events. 28 were pre-pandemic in-person events, and the other 71 were virtual. Our committees found numerous ways to engage speakers and presenters, attendees, and sponsors. From board meetings, the leadership retreat, conferences, webinars, and social events, attendance has steadily increased. And committees are providing a variety of professional development opportunities for AZ Water members. Through these virtual events, we have issued 4,300 professional development hours and have had 2,310 total participants take advantage of our offerings. 2020 was not only a year that we went virtual, it was also a year in which we undertook new initiatives to strengthen AZ Water. The completion of our AWWA reorganization was a year-long process, and it was completed in December through the work of our board and our AWWA director, Asia Philbin. We created 2 ad hoc committees this year to manage our responses to the most pressing issues in our country: social justice and COVID-19. The Social Justice Committee has been recognized by our national partners for its commitment to diversity and inclusion and how we are evaluating AZ Water in this space. The committee recognized early on that we would need the assistance of outside experts to help us with this work, and we have been working with 2 local consultants to develop a roadmap. This work will be ongoing and develop over time. The COVID-19 committee has guided the association and provided recommendations to the board on our in-person meeting policies, which are evolving every few months using the best information available to us by the CDC and state of Arizona. AZ Water recognizes the pandemic has called attention to the importance of safe and clean water and the role it plays in public health in our communities. The most recent relief package, the American Rescue Plan, provides billions of dollars in federal funding for drinking water and wastewater. These funds will help to offset financial losses, assist with water infrastructure improvements, and provide utility assistance to low-income and unemployed ratepayers impacted by COVID-19. These funds will help to ensure water access and help to support our water and wastewater professionals.
Here at AZ Water, we value and cherish the personal and professional relationships we have made in the industry. It is our hope that we will be meeting in person again soon. In the meantime, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you. Please feel free to reach out to me at any time to say hello and introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne, for that great message. Now I would like to turn to our Kachina sponsor, Tucson Water, represented by Interim Director and AZ Water Board Member John Kamik. First of all, thank you, Tucson Water, for your leadership and generosity in supporting our conference. The Kachina sponsor is the top sponsor role in this event, and as such is a key element in supporting the conference. We truly appreciate that support. And now I'd like to introduce John Kamik. John is, as I said, an AZ Water board member, and he's currently the interim director of Tucson Water. Prior to rejoining Tucson Water in 2019, John was the director of water and wastewater for the town of Marana for 7 years. Prior to that, he was with Tucson Water assisting in advancing programs such as CAP recharge and recovery, potable and reclaimed water distribution, and backflow prevention programs. John is also currently the president of the Southern Arizona Water Users Association, and he holds an appointed position on Governor Ducey's Water Augmentation, Innovation, and Conservation Council. John represented Tucson on Governor Brewer's Blue Ribbon Panel on water sustainability back in 2010, and he's the Chemical Committee Chairman for AEQ's Advisory Panel on Emerging Contaminants. He was also the co-chair of the Steering Committee on Arizona Potable Reuse, affectionately known as the SCAPR, and he has been on the Board of Trustees of Water Reuse Arizona, the state chapter of the Water Reuse Association, since 2005, serving 2 terms as section president from 2009 to 11 and 2017 to 2019. John has a BS in Geological Sciences from Michigan State, Masters of Public Administration from Troy University, and he's a certified public manager from Arizona State University. Go Devils. Ladies and gentlemen, John Kamik.
Great. Thank you, Doug, for the nice remarks. Hello, everybody. I'm John Kamik, Interim Director for Tucson Water and a member of the AZ Water Board of Directors. I'm here to welcome you to the 94th Annual AZ Water Annual Conference. Tucson Water is very proud to be this year's Kachina level sponsor. A little about Tucson Water. Tucson Water is in its 121st year of operation, and we are the second largest municipal water provider in the state of Arizona. Tucson Water serves close to 750,000 people every day from more than 240,000 service connections with a highly qualified staff of over 560 strong. Let me share with you some other facts about Tucson Water that I hope you find interesting. Did you know Tucson Water is considered one of the largest groundwater-based water utilities in the United States? It's true. For those of you not familiar with Southern Arizona, our perennial water systems dried up nearly 100 years ago while agriculture was the dominant industry in the Tucson area during those years. So besides our rivers going dry, our groundwater systems were in decline most of the 20th century as well. It was recognized by the 1960s that Tucson needed to come up with a new plan to be a sustainable community. 2 major developments occurred during those times. 1, the agreement to build the Central Arizona Project all the way to Tucson, and 2, the foresight of the Tucson Mayor and Council at the time to begin purchasing agricultural lands, primarily in AWWA Valley, the valley west of Tucson, and to retire those lands from agriculture while gaining precious future groundwater rights. Both of those decisions is what makes Tucson one of the most resilient communities in the western United States. Our municipal and industrial CAP allotment is the largest on the canal, 144,191 acre feet annually. For the last several years, Tucson has been purchasing and storing our allotment in multiple recharge facilities and for use on local farms designated as groundwater savings facilities. Our annual potable demand is just north of 100,000 acre-feet a year, so nearly a third of our annual water deliveries from CAP Canal goes directly to aquifer storage for future use as long-term storage credits. Another interesting element of the Tucson water portfolio is that Tucson was one of the original communities in the state to begin a large-scale distributive reclaimed water system. Our reclaimed water system was commissioned in 1983 from our tertiary treatment plant with one 7-mile pipeline to the La Paloma Golf Course. From that original start to one customer, Tucson Water Reclaimed Water System has grown to over 150 miles of transmission mains that serve 17 golf courses, scores of city and county parks, multiple school grounds, and hundreds of individual customers. The introduction of recycled water in the 1980s has enabled Tucson Water to have that diversified portfolio that encourages the right water for the right use. Whether it's CAP water or recycled effluent, the design and promotion of aquifer recharge in the Tucson area has been a success story that travels the world. We have several big plans for the future that will continue to place Tucson as one of the most successful, reliable, and resilient water utilities well into the future. Our focus and commitment to water conservation, natural water harvesting, and the focus and respect for our one water world will continue to push those at Tucson Water forward, not only for our community, but as an example of forward-thinking water management for the rest of the state and the nation. Thank you again for the invitation to speak to you, and I sincerely hope you have a rewarding experience at this 94th Annual AZ Water Conference.
Thank you, John, for those remarks. And thanks again to Tucson Water for your leadership and support. Next, we're going to turn to the American Water Works Association. As you know, AZ Water is partnered with AWWA as the AWWA section organization for Arizona. And each year, AWWA sends a representative from the senior leadership of the National Association to participate in our conference. This year is no different, although we're doing it virtually. So I'm going to turn to Asia Philbin to introduce this year's AWWA representative. But before she does that, let me introduce Asia. Asia is AZ AWWA and AZ Water's national delegate to AWWA. Asia does a terrific job of keeping us here in Arizona linked to the national organization so that we can gain the full benefits of participating in AWWA. She is a longtime and very dedicated member of the AZ Water Board, and she served as our treasurer, one of the most demanding roles we have, for 6 years. Asia serves as the Town of Marana Water Resources Coordinator, where she managed water portfolios and helped to plan and implement energy asset management and water resource recovery programs since 2014. Prior to Marana Water, she worked as a hydrologist for Tucson Water, where she assisted in the planning, analysis, and tracking of water resources and energy portfolios for over a dozen years. Asia is now entering the final year of her 3-year term as Arizona's director on the board of AWWA. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Miami in Marine Science and Geology. So let's welcome Asia.
I'm sorry about that. Apparently, I was muted.
There you are.
We got people waving at me, and
it's so okay.
Sorry about that, folks. All right,
take it from the top. We're ahead of schedule, Asia.
We're ahead of schedule, which is a good thing. I was thanking Doug for your kind words and your introduction, and then I was carrying on with the introduction of Leanne Jones, who it's been a pleasure to serve on the AWWA board as a representative for Arizona with from across the country, water leaders from Canada and Mexico. And Leanne is here virtually with us today from Canada. Leanne Jones is Vice President of the American Water Works Association. She's a consulting engineer with Jacobs in Toronto, Ontario, with over 28 years of experience in the water industry. Leanne has been active as a member of AWWA since 1993. Involved in OWWA, a section of AWWA, Leanne has served as the president, vice president, and conference chair, treasurer of the Ontario section. On the association level, she served as the Water Quality Technical Local Arrangements Chair and is currently serving on the board of directors as Ontario Director and Vice President. Leanne holds a bachelor degree of Applied Science degree in Chemical Engineering from the University of Toronto and is licensed professional engineer in Ontario. She lives in Brampton, Ontario, Canada with her husband and young son. Thank you so much, Leanne, for joining us.
Thank you, Asia, for having me. I'm very pleased to represent the American Water Works Association at your 94th annual conference and your second to go virtual. One of the highlights of being a vice president is the opportunity to come to section conferences. And while we'd all much rather meet in person, please accept my sincere appreciation for providing a platform that allows us to continue to connect even when we can't be together. The transition to engaging with each other virtually does not happen overnight. It's taken a significant amount of effort from a large group of dedicated members to navigate this new framework. And as we in Ontario look to undertake our first virtual conference, I look forward to learning how veterans such as yourself put on a first-rate conference. Please also accept my thanks for all that you've done for your communities this year. You are the front lines of prevention of the spread of COVID-19, and many of you have sacrificed time with your families to protect service for your communities. You came together to reach out to each other and offer support during the state of emergency, and you continue to be that quiet army protecting our communities in ways they do not fully understand, as past President Jim Williams has described. Protection of our communities is the cornerstone of our day-to-day activities. And over the next few minutes, I'd like to highlight and celebrate some of the ways that the sections and AWWA have achieved this. Your section has demonstrated your long-term commitment to protecting water supplies and going above and beyond to provide high-quality water to your customers. Several of your communities have been recognized for this commitment through the Partnership for Safe Water, which was initiated 25 years ago to acknowledge the efforts of the many men and women involved in optimizing their water treatment and distribution systems for exemplary performance. The program provides tools and procedures to support performance beyond regulatory levels and awards organizations for their successes implementing the program. My congratulations to staff and management at the City of Chandler, Epcor Water Arizona, and the City of Tempe, and also the City of Peoria, who participated in the Clean Water Program, for their dedication to the continuous improvement that instills confidence in our water supplies. The partnership program is a wonderful example of how the power of our combined passion and expertise can provide unparalleled access to solutions that address the water supply needs of an increasingly discerning public. And you reach beyond your municipal borders to bring your expertise to areas in need. Your section members have partnered with Community Engineering Corps with funding from Water Equation to help the Dairy Springs Water Association improve the drinking water at their campground in the Coconino National Forest. The Arizona section brings tremendous value to the association. I'll be introducing some of your award winners shortly who have demonstrated outstanding service through leadership and active participation in AWWA programs. I wanted to add congratulations to AWWA's Distinguished Public Service Award winner, Rebecca Stenholm. Rebecca is being recognized for combining her dedication to communicating the value of water to her community with her passionate response to those in need. Rising from loss, Rebecca has not only devoted efforts to leading to raise scholarship funds for children of fallen first responders, but she gives of herself to support others encountering similar personal tragedies. As her nominator Barbara Bahan wrote, day or night, she will never refuse a call or an opportunity to help. Arizona members are true water champions, and AWWA is honored that you have chosen to benefit us with your leadership and commitment. And please accept my personal thanks for going above and beyond to improve our communities. When I prepare my remarks for each section that I visit, I like to look for commonalities in the myriad of water issues that we encounter on a day-to-day basis. Now, you may think that an AWWA member from a province with access to the largest group of freshwater lakes on Earth would have little in common with those in a state with the second lowest percentage of water area in the USA. But it may surprise you to know that almost half of the municipalities in Ontario do not have access to the Great Lakes or other rivers and lakes for water supply, but are dependent on groundwater to meet the needs of a rapidly growing population. Water conservation is a critical component of long-term management of this precious resource for both of us, and the resources developed by AWWA and the sections are part of the essential toolkit that we rely on to communicate the value of water to our communities. In today's political environment in each of our countries, there are too many examples where reasoned and science-based decisions are not implemented as intended due to some level of political interference. Our reputation as the authoritative resource on water, though, has provided us with a solid foundation of credibility from which to advocate successfully for the most beneficial improvement initiatives. AWWA supports the importance of risk and resiliency assessment required by the Water Infrastructure Act. And as we learned recently in Florida, managing the cybersecurity of our systems is more important than ever. Thankfully, due to the dedication and skill of frontline workers, a serious incident was avoided. However, it underscores the importance of supporting a skilled and resilient workforce. Our voice matters when the regulators of our water supply systems are considering responses to critical issues. EPA has incorporated key elements of our joint submission with the National Association of Clean Water Agencies and the Water Environment Federation in the Financial Capability Assessment for Clean Water Act obligations. And our volunteers testified to the U.S. House Subcommittee to advocate for lead service line replacements. While we follow the progress of revisions to the lead and copper rule and other key initiatives, I urge you to engage with your lawmakers at the end of the month during the virtual fly-in to demonstrate our combined commitment to the AWWA mission, providing solutions to effectively manage water, the world's most vital resource. And our commitment to this mission was reaffirmed through the unanimous endorsement of our updated strategic plan last year. We can take pride in the great strides that we've taken together since the plan was last updated in 2016. And now we look forward with a new plan that incorporates current external factors affecting the water sector and strengthens the association's abilities to meet the sector's needs going forward. It sets the expectation that AWWA will leverage its investments in technology to better serve members, strengthen the public's trust in water, advance its commitment to diversity and inclusion, and inspire innovation. We've begun the process in earnest to expand our technology offerings for members with a myriad of online webinars, virtual summits, and the timely release of a new digital platform, Envoy, which provides much needed 24/7 online access to technical content, given that many of our physical offices remain closed or restricted during the state of emergency. Building public trust, as utilities like Tucson have done over the last decade, is key to improving overall confidence in our water supplies. And in addition to webinars and information surveys, our members can add new skills to their communications toolkit through publications like Trending in an Instant, which is a guide to communicating effectively before, during, and after a high-profile communication issue in our service areas. And as AWWA and the sections, including my own, work to strengthen diversity and inclusion practices, I congratulate the Arizona section for acknowledging the importance of changing our approaches to equity, diversity, and inclusion. I look forward to seeing the outcome of the key discovery steps being undertaken by your Social Justice Ad Hoc Committee as we together transform our association to one where everyone is assured of their welcome to play an active part and be reflected in all levels of the association. As our world becomes more complex, challenges face our sector that will not be solved using conventional methods, policies, or technologies. And as a first step to inspire innovative solutions to these challenges, AWWA has launched an innovation guidance document and workbook, which was introduced at a webinar last October. This provides a roadmap to empower our organizations to accelerate the uptake of innovations that provide useful and productive solutions that also save time and money. The planned development of a new manual of practice will also provide additional resources to advance this objective. Asia has shared through the Kachina News the many ways that AWWA has risen to the challenges that COVID-19 restrictions have created, and the approved 2021 budget provides a measured response that focuses on tactics that benefit net income, protect our section allotments, and reduce drawn reserves in order to protect association resources to continue to provide value to the membership. And we're all deeply disappointed that we can't meet in person for ACE 21 in San Diego in June, but the association's resiliency has been demonstrated yet again with the rapid transition to a full virtual experience. While nothing compares to the value of connecting face-to-face, ACE 21 will remain a tremendous opportunity to inform, influence, and impact our industry. And the details are being worked out as we speak, but expect to connect with your colleagues from all over the world to participate in more than 80 hours of technical sessions covering issues critical to the effective management of water supply. The importance of resiliency was emphasized by our current president, Melissa Elliott, who said, "Disruption brings opportunities to innovate, and much needed change can happen faster." And we're all part of that change, whether you're an operator, a manager, a lab tech, a public affairs professional, a researcher, a manufacturer, or a consultant. We will continue to rise to these challenges in the months ahead and demonstrate our resiliency as we deliver a better world through better water. Thank you. And now we're going to move into the awards part of our presentation this afternoon. First up is one of our most prestigious awards, the George Warren Fuller Award. The Fuller Award honors AWWA members for their distinguished service to the water supply field in commemoration of sound engineering skill, brilliant diplomatic talent, and construction leadership. This year's Fuller Award winner from Arizona has over 40 years of experience in the water industry. The awardee has a biology degree from City College of New York, has worked for the City of Peoria, Hollander Consulting Services, Allen Plummer Associates, City of Phoenix, and Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. This year's Fuller awardee is an AWWA and AZ Water Life member and past president of AZ Water, and is known for his wife's cookies. My sincere congratulations this year to Mr. Robert A. Hollander, Arizona Section 2021 AWWA Fuller awardee. Congratulations, Robert. And next award is the AWWA Water Industry Hall of Fame. So next slide. This award honors AWWA members who've made the most significant contributions to the field of public water supply. And our awardee this year, on our next slide, is Andy Richardson. Congratulations, Andy. And our final award for this afternoon is a new award, the 5 Under 35 Outstanding Young Professional Award. And as shown on our next slide, this award has been established to honor AWWA members who have demonstrated outstanding service to their section or association through leadership and active participation in AWWA YP programs. And on our next slide, I am thrilled to announce Amanda Jones as one of this year's outstanding YPs from the Arizona section. Congratulations, Amanda. And that wraps up our awards for this year. Asia, you're muted again.
Sorry, I didn't think I'd do that twice. Okay, so thank you so much, Leanne, for being here with us virtually and for providing that information about AWWA. As Doug mentioned, I am the representative for Arizona, and I'm bringing back information about AWWA, and there's a lot. And so there's just so much that AWWA does. It can be hard to just capture all of that, and I think you did it very well. That's very good for all of our members to be able to appreciate, and also to help us recognize, the challenges and that we share, and what might be different in how we support each other in the water industry, and doing that, and particularly the water leaders that we have in Arizona. So thank you for helping us recognize all of them. And I'll just give a little applause to all of the award winners, because I think that's the best we can do virtually for that applause. But I would like to do that. Congratulations, everyone, on your awards. And Leanne, I do apologize. We did have a for you of appreciation and thanks to recognize your participation in making our conference successful. So I know that it didn't, or it hasn't yet arrived yet in Canada, but it will. And I just wanted to mention that one of the gifts we sent is a Mudhead at Play, Mudhead on a Swing by Navajo carver Alfred Benally. The 6-inch Mudhead is on a swing and it's attached to a limb. It's about 9 inches in height. And Mudhead patinas are clowns who may be seen in most Hopi ceremonies. They come dance, play games with the audience, and they may act as announcers for events. They're given prizes or rewards for the races and guessing games that they organize. So the term Mudhead comes from their masks, which have mud applied to them. And I think that's an appropriate thank you for what you're able to do for us here today. So again, thank you very much.
Thank
for
you.
attending and helping make this conference a success.
Well, thank you both, Asia and Leanne. First of all, congratulations. I want to congratulate our winners also. Bob Hollander, a legend in our industry. Andy Richardson, obviously, long record of service. And Amanda Jones, one of our outstanding up-and-comers. These are big deals. These are national level awards, and we're very proud to be represented by such outstanding folks. And also, Leanne, we really appreciate the update on the great work that AWWA is doing. There's a tremendous amount of value to be gained from AWWA memberships. I'm going to add a plug here. So those of you out there who are members, be sure to participate. There's lots of ways to get involved. And those of you who are not members, really consider joining. I can just say I myself have gotten a great deal of career development over a period of many years from my membership at AWWA. And we all know the important work they do. There's even more there than you might be aware of, as I think we saw from some of Leanne's presentation. Lots of opportunities to get involved. So please take that opportunity if it works for you. Okay, we are going to take a short intermission until 11 o'clock. Please be sure to be back at 11 because we have a terrific panel discussion coming up with an all-star lineup of experts on Arizona water policy issues. No topic could be more timely. So see everybody back here at 11 o'clock sharp. Thanks a lot.
Water, our focus, our business, our passion. Barolo Engineers, working wonders with water.
The Luke 303 Regional Water Reclamation Facility has a strong sustainability component, which at build-out will recharge up to 8 million gallons of treated effluent into the ground every day. At EPCOR, we believe projects like this are the foundation for economic development for the communities we serve.
Just a decade ago, the idea of smart water systems seemed like a space odyssey. The idea of integrating data and information from separate systems and sources to instantly provide utilities with informed solutions was impossible. The possibility of designing a water or sewer plant using a simulated digital twin, saving time and money in the design of treatment systems, was quite futuristic. At Stanley Consultants, we understand the future is now. In 2020, we launched our vision for utility digital transformation and established new tech partnerships for smart water systems. This initiative prepares us to support the best and most innovative utilities who seek to tear down data and information silos. Utilities that seek to design and operate their systems by utilizing data from all systems and sources, along with automated data analytics to make the best decisions within critical timeframes and at lower costs. Ask Stanley Consultants about how our vision for smart water systems and digital transformation can make yours a utility of the future.
Water, our focus, our business, our passion. Barolo Engineers, working wonders with water.
The Luke 303 Regional Water Reclamation Facility has a strong sustainability component, which at build-out will recharge up to 8 million gallons of treated effluent into the ground every day. At EPCOR, we believe projects like this are the foundation for economic development for the communities we serve.
Just a decade ago, the idea of smart water systems seemed like a space odyssey. The idea of integrating data and information from separate systems and sources to instantly provide utilities with informed solutions was impossible. The possibility of designing a water or sewer plant using a simulated digital twin, saving time and money in the design of treatment systems, was quite futuristic. At Stanley Consultants, we understand the future is now. In 2020, we launched our vision for utility digital transformation and established new tech partnerships for smart water systems. This initiative prepares us to support the best and most innovative utilities who seek to tear down data and information silos, utilities that seek to design and operate their systems by utilizing data from all systems and sources, along with automated data analytics to make the best decisions within critical timeframes and at lower costs. Ask Stanley Consultants about how our vision for smart water systems and digital transformation can make yours a utility of the future.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. Some of the best elements of this conference each year are the panel discussions, and this year is certainly no different. We have a great group of experts lined up to discuss Arizona water policy issues and our challenges in maintaining sustainable and resilient water supplies. Our panel facilitator is Catherine Sorensen, who is now the Director of Research at the Kyle Center for Water Policy at the Morrison Institute. Catherine Sorensen, as many of you know, served for many years as the Director of the Phoenix Water Services Department, and before that as the Director of the City of Mesa Water Resources Department. And in those roles, she was responsible for the delivery of safe, clean, and reliable water for millions of Arizonans and significantly advanced the sustainable management of water resources in Arizona and the Colorado River Basin. Catherine earned a PhD in agricultural resource economics from Texas A&M University and a Bachelor of Arts in Economics from the University of Michigan. In her position at Arizona State University, she oversees the research efforts of the Kyle Center for Water Policy, serves as a professor of practice at the Watts College of Public Service and Community Solutions, and contributes to the Global Futures Laboratory. Please welcome Catherine Sorensen, and she will introduce the rest of our panel.
Great. Thank you so much. Good morning to all of the amazing people out there in the Arizona water and wastewater industry. Please take a moment to congratulate yourselves because it has been a year since this pandemic began, and yet every single community water system in Arizona continues to operate in protection of public health. You guys are all heroes, and I just want to thank you for everything that you do every day for our communities. Today, we have a great lineup of panelists with some interactive polls for the audience. I'm really hoping the technology works, but if it doesn't, we will adapt and overcome, so please bear with us. Before I introduce the panelists, I'm going to begin with a really short poll to test the technology and kind of just determine the mood of the audience. As an audience member, all you need to do is go to slido.com. So that's SLIDO.com and enter pound S044. Hopefully it is showing up on your screen right now. And my internet was unstable, so you might have lost me for a minute there, but hopefully you guys have gotten this poll. Okay, least worst. Wow, I'm kind of surprised by these results. I personally would have gone with achy breaky heart, but I see that that most people think that The Gambler by Kenny Rogers is least worst. I find that shocking, but good to know. Okay, thanks for that. With us today are some really amazing panelists. Joanna Allhands oversees the Arizona Republic's opinion content on the web, in video and through social media. She also writes on water and education policy in Arizona. I'm sure you've seen her articles. Joanna has been with the Republic since 2004. She is an Indiana native, a cold weather wimp, as are most of us, and most importantly, the mom of a kindergartner. So Joanna, welcome.
Thank you.
Susan Montgomery was chosen by the Intertribal Council of Arizona to represent their views on this panel. She is the founding partner of the Phoenix-based law firm Montgomery and Interpreter. She provides advice to tribal governments on a wide array of water policy and management decisions that focus on the need to support tribal water security in Arizona. In addition, Susan provides legal counsel and policy advice to the Intertribal Council of Arizona, a consortium of 21 Arizona tribes. Her work includes assisting ITCA on a wide range of Indian law matters, including the Tribal Water Systems Program, Sacred Site Protection, and the Tribal Leaders Water Policy Council. Welcome, Susan. Jake Lenderking is Senior Vice President of Water Resources and Legislative Affairs at Global Water Resources, where he oversees the company's water resources and conservation programs. Previously, Jake led in water resource and operation roles at EPCOR Water, the City of Phoenix, and at the Arizona Department of Water Resources. Jake sits on the Arizona Forward Board, where he is co-chair of the Water Strategies Committee. He also sits on the Pinal County Water Augmentation Authority Board. Jake received his BS in Environmental Resources with a concentration in watershed ecology from Arizona State University and holds an MBA from Thunderbird School of Global Management. Welcome, Jake.
Thank you.
Tim Tomier is Interim Assistant City Manager for the City of Tucson, overseeing public works functions of the city, including Tucson Water. Tim is a licensed PE with 26 years of experience, including strategic planning, project delivery, and water policy. He holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Illinois, a Master of Engineering degree from the University of Arizona, and is pursuing a PhD from the University of Arizona. He's past president of AWWA and currently serves on the Governor's Water Augmentation, Innovation, and Conservation Council and the Arizona Reconsultation Committee. This is quite a panel we've got. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you, Catherine.
Okay, so before we get to the panel, we're going to do another quick audience poll. What we want to ask you this time are, what are the biggest challenges facing the Arizona water and wastewater industry? I need to warn you guys that sometimes on these polls, you need to scroll all the way down so that you can see all the possible answers. And I'll give you some time to do that. Okay, so far people are voting for my favorite, which is aging infrastructure, but it's a close one. Oh, now Colorado River shortage is winning. Oh boy, this is a tight one. I see climate change. Oh boy. Okay, it looks like aging infrastructure has taken the lead. Climate change and drought is up there, Colorado River shortage, and ability to maintain a skilled workforce. I gotta say, those are all huge challenges. And none of those answers come as a surprise to me. So right off the bat, Tim, Sue, Jay, Joanna, I'd like to get your take on that.
Hi, Catherine. I'll be happy to jump in. And I'll say that race was almost as close as the Arizona women's basketball game the other day in the national championship. Having said that, I do think what came out in that poll really does reflect, I think, what our community in Tucson is viewing as some of the biggest challenges. Aging infrastructure is a challenge, but it's a surmountable challenge. It's something that we can certainly address when we're doing a proper level of investment that does require a proper level of funding of a utility. And I think by and large, Arizona is doing pretty well with that. We are making investments. There are capital programs. Aging infrastructure is being addressed. We just got a lot of work to do, and that work is never done. On the water supply side of the equation, whether you want to focus in on the Colorado River itself or more globally talk about climate change and the aridification of our basin and our state, it is the long-term issue that I think really needs the most investment. There are things we can do on the mitigation side of things, and the faster we act, the better. And a lot of us are in the place of having to adapt. And frankly, we need both. And not certain how much investment will be done in mitigation. A lot of our focus has been on adaptation and preparation for that. So I think the poll really reflects the pulse of what's going on in our industry in Arizona.
So Susan, I'm curious about your reaction to that. And certainly there are some things that are very similar in Indian country and some things that are very different.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. All of the things that, outside of Indian country that everybody's experiencing is also going on in Indian country. And of course, as you know, we have 22 tribes in Arizona. 28% of the land base is a tribal land base. In terms of impacts, just my own opinion, not speaking on behalf of ITCA or any one of my tribal clients, climate change and the acidification issue is going to exacerbate a lot of these other issues. So whether you're looking at the financial stresses or you're looking at aging infrastructure, these are all things that we're seeing, magnified, and I think are going to continue to be magnified. And then for Indian country, having sufficient staff and people that are trained and that have the adaptability to address climate change in Indian country is going to be and is going to be more and more of a challenge.
So Joanna, you write a lot about the industry. Give us your perspective on this more broadly.
Yeah, I think what's really important about that poll is that, or at least what stood out to me is that there were so many competing interests. And I think that's kind of the thing about water is that there's so many things that are going on and there's so many things that are really super important that need to happen, all at once. There's lots of planning and adaptability and all that kind of stuff that we need to be doing. And I think it's easy because things are so complicated with water, just to get overwhelmed with all of it and just be like, oh my gosh, there's so much we need to do. Really, it's one of those things where because of the future we're facing, we're going to have to really walk and chew gum on a lot of things.
Interesting. Jake, what are your thoughts coming from the private utility perspective?
From the private utility space, we're basically the same thing. As cities and towns, we just have a direct focus on just water and wastewater, in our case, recycled water. And that kind of leads me in springboarding off of what Tim said, and that's that adaptation. Really, our utility was founded on the idea of water scarcity. We have the great fortune of being founded in 2003 when some of these things were obvious, not as obvious as they are today. But drought and climate change and shortage, Colorado River shortage, are all obviously very linked. And adaptability is what we really need to focus on as Arizonans, not just at a greater scale, but individual utility scale as well.
Interesting. Okay, so we're going to go back to the audience for a word cloud poll. We've identified some of the top challenges in Arizona. I'd like for you guys to throw out what you think some of the solutions are. I would encourage the audience to use as few words as possible because long sentences are going to get weird. But let's take some time. I'd love to hear what people think some of the solutions are. Sadly, there are no solutions. Oh, there we go. One. Okay. Okay. Well, if we only have to pick one, resiliency is a pretty good one. Oh, here we go.
Right.
These are going to get too small for my old eyes to see on the screen, so. Super interesting. So two winners are coming to the forefront here, investment and conservation.
What a cool tool.
Yeah.
I like it. I didn't know how this was going to render. This is fun.
Yeah, it's really cool. It looks like conservation is kind of our clear winner so far. Okay, so in the solution space, we'll let that poll keep running. But Joanna, I want to ask you a particular question. So Here in Arizona, we kind of have a wide disparity in how water management regulations have been used and applied. There have been both successes and problems, of course. But thinking about the solution space, where do you think additional state regulation makes sense? And where do you think additional local control makes sense?
Yeah, it's a really big question. It's kind of one of those key questions in water that we have, right? Is like, where should we have state control and where should we have local control? And, in the past, we've been pretty state dominated, with the Department of Water Resources has really kind of loomed large over discussions and decisions and that sort of thing. And there's arguments for that. We can just look to California and how they've created all these local groundwater plans, and some of them are in the same aquifer and no one's really working together, and that's not a good way to handle management. But there's also some compelling arguments for local control too, particularly in places like Mojave County, which is, concerned about the lack of regulation there and all the barriers to getting more regulation. So, granted, a lot of those barriers have to do with the legislation that's needed, and that's where it all breaks down. In a perfect world, I think I'd like to see each groundwater basin of interest covered by an active management area or an irrigation non-expansion area, and that the goals and plans for those should be much more tailored to each area's desires and needs. So if a community is like, no, the goal here is just to manage depletion, then let's say that and focus the plan around that and make sure that everyone who lives and moves into that community knows, this is where we're at, this is what we're thinking. That said, I know that AMA and INA are poisonous acronyms in the legislature. So, maybe the best way to do this would be to kind of split the baby here and to create some sort of legislation that allows a pilot, maybe 10 years or something like that, for a county like Mojave to get this set up, see how it goes. And if it works out, there isn't a ton of infighting between this local authority and AWWA. If the approach actually saves water, since that really probably should be the point of it too, hey, let's reauthorize it. I suspect a lot of counties will begin clamoring to do the same before that 10-year mark, if it works and if it works well.
Interesting. So, Jake, I'd like to get your take on that from a private utility perspective, which I think might be a little different from a municipal one.
Yeah, we have a little different angle in that we're regulated by the ACC, and we have that 5-member elected body of the Corporation Commission, who oversees all of the investor-owned utilities such as Southwest Gas, APS, and so on. So our regulator's a little bit different than a city or town as being their elected council, but a lot of it's very similar. I think when it comes to regulation, I really echo what Joanna is saying. I think we really have to think hard on how we want to regulate and how we want to say it up front. I think it reflects on what the audience poll just had. We had conservation, education, and water reuse, all three there. And I really think the education component can be stronger. If someone wants to buy land as a developer, do they know what that land, what the water part means to that land? If someone wants to buy a home, is it really clearly identified that that's an area that requires an assured water supply? Or is maybe it a lot that was around before the Assured Water Supply Program? And lastly, I really think a lot of this water reuse came up as well, and that's always been a big perspective as ours. As you know, I mentioned a moment ago, we think of ourselves as 3 utilities in one: water, wastewater, and recycled water, because we really want to be as resilient and focused as we can at a utility level first. So I think as we go forward, we both need more of what the Groundwater Management Act did in and around the state, and not in a heavy-handed way, but in a way that individual areas can adapt to through both carrot and stick. As most water resource professionals know, the Groundwater Management Act is filled with as many opportunities or carrots out there to do the right thing and actually provide incentives as there are sticks. So I think we could spend some time figuring out what those are throughout the rest of the state.
So, Susan, of course, there's a different context for Indian communities because they're not subject to state laws, but rather have more of a patchwork of federal agency involvement. Where do you think that local control has worked well? And do you see a role for maybe enhanced federal partnership with Indian communities in Arizona on some of these issues?
Well, for sure. I mean, I think tribes can be part of the solution as Arizona confronts the challenges that it's facing on water and will be facing. That's first off. I would point out what's significant for tribes is, we think of tribes as sort of insular and that they have their own constitutional authorities, their own sovereignty. But in reality, what happens, of course, off the reservation has a huge impact on the reservation. So if you're depleting water upstream on the Verde River, for example, you're going to affect tribes all the way down the Verde, from Yavapai Apache to Fort McDowell to Salt River, Pima, Maricopa at the confluence of the Salt River. If you are, if there is significant unregulated pumping outside the AMAs, adjacent to reservations, you're going to have a huge potential to deplete the water underneath the reservations. And in particular for tribes that don't have settlements and don't have the benefit of some of the protections that settlements bring, including protections like Gila River under state law for buffers around the reservation, tribes have their hands are really tied in terms of their ability to protect their water resources. And that's a huge challenge for them, and because they, like every other water manager, is looking for water certainty now and into the future.
So what I'm kind of hearing from all the panelists is whether there's more or less regulation, what matters most is partnership and collaboration amongst those who are impacted. So Tim, I don't know if you have some thoughts on that.
I think you hit it right on the head that if we don't have the partnership and collaboration and we all silo up too much with our own, kind of geographies or self-interest, we're not going to be able to solve the bigger challenges. So there's a context and there's a history to where we are in water space, and that weaves through the regulations we have, that weaves through the rights and priorities we have. But only through dialogue, negotiation, and being able to come together and partner and collaborate can we really solve big problems. The big example, most recent, is the drought contingency plans. That was not an easy solution to come up with, even though the right answer was, how do we withstand drawing less from the river, and the Colorado River. But it came together because of partnership and collaboration and deals that touched on all the stakeholders present in this and other discussions. So I think that's absolutely correct, that we need more of that, and we need to continue those dialogues and build those relationships so we can get to even better solutions when we're facing the challenges that are in front of us.
Yeah, well said. Okay, so we're going to go back to another audience poll. So I'm sure most of you know that Governor Ducey created a formal council on water augmentation, innovation, and conservation. So one of its tasks is to identify and recommend opportunities. And now I'm particularly curious, everyone can answer, but I'm curious particularly for those of you who work in a rural utility. Please go to this poll and pick the augmentation opportunity that you believe is most productive for your community. And remember to scroll down, because I think that the governor's committee came up with a lot of different options. I'm going to let that run a couple more seconds because this one there were a lot of different options to pick from. But I think we have a clear winner. Okay. So yeah, we have a very clear winner there. We have reclaimed water reuse, obviously extremely important here in Arizona, followed by municipal conservation. Let's see, agricultural conservation, brackish groundwater desal. So that's interesting. I can't say I'm surprised that reclaimed water rose to the list. I'm actually a little bit surprised that agricultural and municipal conservation are not far off from each other. I think that's really interesting. So Tim, let's start out with you. Which, if any of these augmentation opportunities, do you think is most productive for urban Arizona, and why?
Okay, I'm going to start with breaking rule number 1 of being on a panel, which is argue with the poll itself. And let me just explain myself. In my view, the conservation, whether it's municipal or agricultural, is a must-have and is not a choice between that and other things. So I think that might even be reflected in the poll results, because I think it's a given. It's foundational. You've got to live within your means as best you can. So I'm going to say conservation on the municipal and the agricultural side must occur, must continue. It's one of the reasons why Tucson is in a very resilient state right now. So I'm going to let that stand on its own. And then the two I wrote down before the poll went were reuse and brackish groundwater desalination. So I was actually pretty excited to see, and so reuse dominating, and then brackish groundwater desalination still showing up there. So just staying in the augmentation space. So reuse is already an important part of many of our community supply. And I'm going to also have a beef with the Department of Water Resources. When they show their pie charts and they count what is reuse, it's 5% or less, and that's because of how they define it. And I will stand on my soapbox and say it grossly underestimates or undercalculates how much reuse is occurring, because it does not account for the groundwater recharge that occurs with reclaimed water. And that is a very significant part of our water supply. So now that I've picked fights with everybody, I think there's the potential for reuse is still untapped. It is still a significant opportunity there, whether you're rural or urban. So that absolutely needs to be invested in. And then when you look a little bit beyond and you start, because that's not a next bucket, that's a bucket we have been carrying it around with us, and we just need to use it more. Brackish groundwater desalination, I think, is at least a next bucket that at least has a volume for a fixed period of time that could be utilized. So if you were going to invest further into what I would consider to be pure augmentation, and maybe that's even from a regional standpoint or a statewide standpoint, there's potential there. It's economical relative to some other choices that are on the table. And I think we have some infrastructure that we could leverage to make that work. So that's where I would like to see investment moving forward, on top of the conservation, which is a foundational value, and reuse.
So I'm going to go off script here just for a second. And before picking on individual panelists, I'm just going to open it up. Does anyone want to address the broader question of why we turn to augmentation in the first place, and why we find it so difficult to accept using less as a solution?
I'm happy to jump in and just say, while the governor's council jumped to augmentation and some in our legislature jumped to augmentation, I don't think water practitioners jumped to augmentation. So I'll leave it at that.
I can I can jump in and give it a shot as well. It's the big sexy solution, right? A cap canal that diverts 1.5 million acre feet per year. We're a society of big things and big projects and big ideas. But I will echo Tim's comment. Water practitioners are not there. It's there. It's out on the horizon. But really, especially here at our utility, our focus has been what can we do locally through conservation, as Tim mentioned, and then water reuse as well. We really believe that we have a lot to do at the utility level. And there are a lot of utilities around the state, and I think there's a lot there. And perhaps because this is a utility practitioner conference, maybe that's why water reuse rose so high to the top. And just because people recognize the impracticality of developing an entire new cap canal. Although we do need to think big ideas, we do need to keep that top of mind and dream big. That's how the cap canal came here to begin with.
Yeah, and I'll jump in on that. Oh, I'm sorry, unless you wanted to move. I think also that, while it's tempting to go the augmentation route, and we're going to have to go that way. I mean, all the reports have said, that we can't conserve our way out of this, that we're going to eventually have to have some sort of augmentation solution in there. But when you jump to it too quick, I mean, I'm sorry that I'm picking on California, but look what they have done. They jumped directly into augmentation, the, biggest, most expensive solution out there, really before they probably could have done a lot more, with conservation. And so I think it's important that we're having these discussions, and, they take a long time. So it's good that we're starting now. But yeah, we need to be talking about what more can we do in that conservation space. And I think also what was interesting about the poll, since you kind of prefaced it with rural interests, specifically, what do you need? There was recently a hearing in one of the governor's water committee meetings talking about stormwater reuse and that sort of thing. And there really does seem to be a big interest in the rural areas on that, just because I think very few are doing it or aren't doing it to the extent of what a lot of the larger cities are already doing. So I think that's really interesting. And I think that's something that could really pay off, not only in the smaller rural areas, but, in larger cities too. I think, to echo what Tim said, there is definitely more that we can do.
So Susan, you talked about the importance of partnerships between Indian communities and the communities that, are in the region or our neighbors. What do you see as the space for partnerships and augmentation opportunities?
Well, I think every tribe has a different relationship with their communities and is related to their communities differently, right? For example, one of the clients I work with is the AWWA Nation, and they're on the Verde River, and their land base is intertwined almost in a patchwork sense with their local communities. So they work very, very closely on discussions on water, on how do they keep the Verde River flowing, and even on topics of augmentation. So looking at questions of recharge, how to support base flows in the Verde River, how to offset future growth with capturing water and being able to treat it and recharge it. And that's something, and converting septic. Up there, there's a tremendous amount of septic, and these even not so much on the reservation, but off the reservation. And so that's lost. You're not able to do a lot with that water. Whereas if the nation, the AWWA Nation, can partner with its local communities to look at ways to capture septic, treat it to a highly treated level, and then recharge it, that's mutually beneficial for both. And we've actually worked with Bureau of Reclamation to look at that question in partnership with our local communities for AWWA. But tribes across the state are trying to look at how they interrelate with their local communities, and they're always willing to come to the table to try to find augmentation solutions or other solutions.
Interesting. And, a lot of the problems and certainly the solutions that we talk about in the Arizona water and wastewater industry they're technical, they're complicated, they're confusing. Joanna, I think folks in the audience might appreciate your perspective as someone who has to translate really complicated things into what, like a 500 to 1,000 character article. How can professionals better communicate the importance of these topics, the importance of these solutions in a manner that speaks to the general public and to the audience?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a challenge. And I think that's reflected even, in the poll is saying that we need to do a lot more with education. It's totally true. The more you know, it's good. And so I probably would say to that, be probably as simple and forthright as possible. And really get to those key questions, like, why does this matter? How does this affect me? And I know that's tough because water is complicated. And I often joke, water policy is basically telling someone, you can do that, but only on Tuesdays and only when you're jumping on one foot, except if there's a full moon, and then no, you can't do that at all. So, that's why I rely on all of you for the technical knowledge to help me with this, to try to explain. And I don't think that doesn't mean that you can't get into the details of things. I think people can handle complexity if you can break it down in language that they can understand. And so, I appreciate the white papers that the post-2025 AMA committee through the Governor's Council created. And I know not everybody was on board with what they said, but, having something short like that explains the issue in a way that people can understand, like that's really important. We've had these huge white papers that were like 50 plus pages from the early 2000s on like very similar issues to what the post 2025 folks are working on. And they were dense, and no wonder we're still having this discussion. So, I appreciate efforts from like people at the Kyle Center, who have done the visualizations and the graphical stories and that sort of thing to kind of explain concepts. And I think also what we need are maybe more calls to action. Sort of the thing of like, what can people do on this issue? And I recognize that, water providers, you don't want to be in the business of advocating or telling people what to think. But I often think we talk about the issue, but never get to the solutions. And when we do, they're often so convoluted that it's hard for the broader public to feel engaged with it or to have some sort of ownership in the issue. So like on water conservation, people need to know not just why they need to get their sprinkler timers right, but why it's in their best interest. It's not just about doing, it's about why is it important? Why is that important for you? And so I think the more that water providers can kind of keep that key question in their minds as they're explaining things, I think that would be super helpful.
I'm going to open that up and see if any of our other panelists have some thoughts on that. I'm sure you've all had your challenges trying to translate very technical information to a more general audience.
I'll go ahead and go, Catherine. Yeah, we definitely do. We definitely do. At the Global Water Center, we actually call it the Global Water Center of Excellence, and welcomed in our community in Maricopa. Initially, Maricopa didn't have a lot of meeting space, so we were really able to leverage that by using our meeting space, our conference center, as a place that people had to walk through water exhibits and really just continue to educate them. We work with, of course, Project WET and others, and that's a really broad one. But as we get to these really complex issues, that are rooted in 5-letter acronyms followed by 10-letter acronyms, that still really is a challenge. We work with other local agencies to help keep them informed. Like in Pinal County, there's the Pinal Partnership, of course, and we have a water resource committee. So we try to keep that partnership board very well abreast of the water issues, and just make it a continued discussion point. But I got to tell you, it really is difficult. I mean, you could explain acronyms all day, and people will run out of time. So it's a tough one.
reflect on what Jake just said. The continued process with the stakeholders and or partners. It's a continued dialogue with the community, and I guess you need to not just talk to them when you need something. You need to actually have an ongoing trust building relationship with your community, so that those that might have a very superficial question, first of all, you can give them a simple, plain, direct answer. And there are many people that will be like, well, I trust my utility, therefore that answer satisfies me. And then there's others that maybe want to get into the detail and providing the space for that to occur. And then just constantly refining your message, because you might think you've explained it just really, really well. And then when you have your 3 slides to present on per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, you realize maybe I didn't connect. I didn't do that as well as I could, and just keep adapting, because sometimes it's practice makes perfect on the messaging, but also just being willing to do it and put in the effort.
Interesting. Okay, we're going to go in a slightly different direction now. We're going to go back to an audience poll. This is one of the issues that came up as one of the biggest challenges in Arizona in the water and wastewater industry. What are the biggest challenges to attracting and retaining a skilled workforce in our industry? And I'm going to give the audience some time to react to that. And I'll remind you to scroll because there's lots of answers. Okay, I'm seeing a really strong winner there, and I can't say it's a surprise to me. I know in my time as Phoenix Water Director, adjusting salaries to market conditions was an extremely long and bureaucratic and difficult process. So I'm not surprised to see that. And it's interesting too that people feel that skilled talent goes into other industries. So, Susan, actually, I think I'll start out with you. And if you wouldn't mind speaking maybe on behalf of Indian communities, but also, just rural areas of the state, what kinds of workforce challenges are out there? And does this poll kind of speak to that?
It sort of speaks to it. I think on the Indian country front, my experience is the challenge in Indian country for keeping trained and certified operators on the reservation operating those systems. ITCA has for a very long time has a program, a tribal water systems program, where they train and certify operators. They always say by tribes, for tribes, not only in Arizona, but actually all across the country, except on the Eastern Seaboard, which is, there's a program run out by United Southeastern Tribes. So they bring in tribal trainers, and they train and they certify these operators. And the goal there is really to keep qualified tribal operators in Indian country. because a lot of times what will happen is if you have someone who comes from outside Indian country, and this is not all instances, but particularly in rural tribes, for example, they may come stay for a little while and then they leave. And so you end up in a situation where there's a rotating door for operators. Whereas if we can get tribal operators trained and certified, and that's their community, that's their family, right? That's what they do to take care of their community, then they're going to stay. And we can build that capacity over time, and they can move up in terms of management and authorities. That's a huge thing for Indian country, and ITCA has often struggled too with funding. For a very long time, states received, of course, funding for certification of operators, but tribal consortium like the ITCA did not in parity under, for example, the Safe Drinking Water Act. And they still struggle with funding to kind of patchwork other grants and opportunities and funding sources at ITCA together to keep this program going. So that's just a huge issue. And I think there's probably similar issues, off the reservation in rural Arizona as well. But certainly we see that on the reservation.
Jake, from a private utility perspective, I'm interested because you do have, I think, an easier time adjusting salaries to market conditions. Not easy, but probably easier than a lot of other places. So what are your thoughts?
We do. Catherine, going back to your time at Phoenix, we had a discussion about this before, and it's a really good question, a really good contrast there. We do have the advantage of being a little more flexible and nimble. The way we're set up governing. For example, we can have a certain position open for a certified operator, and we're just not getting the qualified applicants. But we do see some really strong candidates with a little lesser experience. We can very easily change that job, on the fly, bring that person in, and then grow that job back up to the level, say from a 1 to a 3, or up into a supervisor role or whatever. So we have a lot of flexibility there that we like to use. But kind of going back to what Susan said, I just want to share the same problem in the rural areas. We have water systems in Maricopa, Arizona is one of our larger systems, and actually it is our largest system. But we have other ones, smaller, more far away ones, and really getting that certified operator there, looking in that local community is the best way versus having someone drive there. And then when you can't do that, the real difficulty is that on-call piece where someone is on call and they have to respond, and it might be a half-hour drive or whatnot. Sometimes even longer, depending on what the issue is, time of day, time of night. That can get really difficult and hard to retain people when you're asking people to be on call quite regularly. So one of the things we're finding is we like to acquire and kind of consolidate these small utilities in areas that we can that workforce can share between those small utilities that are rural in that area. So we're really hoping to find more ways to bridge the gap and close that problem there. So we don't have, I guess, a disincentive. We do have a lot of very good incentives for employees to attract and retain employees. I know excited is one of the things in there, and water and wastewater just isn't exceptionally exciting. But I always like to say, everybody has to have this in our communities, right? You have to have water and wastewater solutions. They have to be present, or we just won't be here. So we really like to remember that we're of the utmost of essential workers. We really like to try to celebrate our employees regularly, quarterly. 2020 was a wreck. We're hoping to make this year's 2021 Christmas holiday party the biggest, best ever, and several celebrations between now and then, because really employees are the bedrock of what we are, and we try to put them first. I'll just throw out one other example, and I hope everybody can do it. We celebrate the employee's birthday, right? We give them the day off. They can't always take it that day. They most of them put their work and their duties first. But we say take a day, take half the day, take half the day Friday, take it Monday, whatever works for you. Shayna, who works for me today, is her birthday. She's working. She's going to take Friday off though, and we just really try to do that because we're not Intel. we're not sexy like that, but we are essential.
So, Tim, what is the perspective from the large municipal water provider?
So I would agree with the top answer there because we are not flexible or nimble. We're not known for that. And what's also often part of the conversation is when you're a municipally run utility, you'll have your workforce, but you're embedded in an overall city structure. So if I have equipment operators and I'm having trouble retaining or recruiting equipment operators, so does transportation, so does environmental services. But mine are special because they have to dig at 2:00 in the morning next to a pipe. And so the differentiation can be difficult because we're going to recruit for equipment operators and they could, land anywhere in the city. So we're trying to find ways to address that. It's actually interesting. In just over an hour's time, our mayor and council is going to be entertaining at our mayor and council meeting a market study that was done citywide, which includes the water utility workers. And where are we at market? Where are we 13% below market? And how do we address that as an organization? So it's not limited to the water industry, but it's certainly the context of being in a municipal government adds that complexity to it because you often have to do something that's kind of a one size fits all across multiple departments. The other thing I'll mention though is we don't necessarily advertise very well what opportunities are in the water industry. So if somebody says, well, I want to go into the electronics industry. Well, if you're an electronics technician and you want to work in the water industry, you will always have a job. If you want to be a mechanic, you will always have a job. You want to be a chemist, you will always have a job. So there's water industry can often be viewed by outsiders as being one set of skills or one set of types of opportunities. But frankly, we do everything in order to meet the mission of safe, reliable water and wastewater. So I think better understanding of what the opportunities are and then the benefits of working in your community for this really, whether you're an electrician or not, you're supporting safe, reliable drinking water to your community.
So, Joanna, you love us. You love this industry.
I love you.
What's going on? Why don't people love us? Why don't more people want to come work for us? What can we do?
Yeah, and I'm speaking completely as an outsider, so take it with a ginormous chunk of salt. But I would just say, I think probably when you talk to people who don't know anything about water, or especially if you say wastewater, then automatically they think of like, ew, it stinks, or like gross, right? And like, why would I want to do that? And especially, as Tim was saying, if it's maybe not super competitive, people don't understand, like you said, if there's, someone who is really skilled in software development or, doing something that could really make an innovative solution, they could probably still make a really big contribution, but they just don't know that. And I think that's probably a lot of it. And I think that was interesting to see on the poll is that people just, they're not excited about it because they just don't know. They just think that it's like, well, I don't want to work at the plant that stinks. Like, why would I do that? So it's that battle.
Okay, so we're going to go to another audience poll. This one, a different direction altogether. What are the top priorities for Arizona for renegotiation of the 2007 operating guidelines for Lakes Powell and Meade? So as you guys all know, we've got a big negotiation coming up ahead of us with the 7 states, the other 6 states that share the Colorado River Basin and the Republic of Mexico, about how we're going to deal with shortages and water levels and operations in Lake Meade and Lake Powell. And that's a big impact for Arizona. So we have some choices here for you. Would love to see your reaction to those, and I'll remind you to scroll down so you can see all the different options.
And Catherine, while we're watching this, what the top vote getter, we'll go get it. We'll get it done.
Yeah.
Right?
I like that attitude.
I mean,
that's right. There's that much at stake on this poll.
That's right. This is the only input we get going into the negotiation, folks. really.
The Arizona
I think we turn to the Navy.
Yeah, that's not
Come
polling
on, more
well.
votes for that.
That's like conservation. That's a must-have, and now we're choosing against all the other options.
I miss Herb Gunther's pictures. I still use them from time to time, the aircraft carrier and Lake Mead picture.
Yes.
Love those.
You know, I think Arizona Water could come up with a uniform concept for that. This is a tricky one, so I'm going to let this one run a little bit longer.
I am curious who besides Chuck Cullum voted for operation of the Yuma desalination plant. How many votes does Chuck Cullum get?
Buddy.
Chuck knows I'm kidding.
There might be a few people who came out of retirement to vote for that.
Once they mustered out of the Arizona Navy.
It's logical. That's the next place you go, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like we're maybe stalled out here. Wow, actually, I'm surprised by this result. Greater certainty regarding how shortage is shared among California, Arizona, Nevada, and Mexico below Lake Mead levels at 1025. That came out first. Second was increased flexibility for voluntary water markets and transfers, including for agricultural and tribal water. Susan, you know I'm going to be asking you about that. That's interesting. And Susan, can you scroll down? What came in third? Greater flexibility? What does that say? To store water behind Lake Mead. Oh, interesting. Yeah, the Yuma desal didn't poll very well. That's interesting. And yeah, and no one took the bait on the Arizona Navy, maybe one person. Well, that's
what's interesting to me is how low more water from the upper basin is on that.
I assume people just know it's impossible.
It's not reality.
It's not going to happen. Okay. So yeah, panelists. So my goodness, who wants to start on this one?
I'm always happy to start. Just to that more water from the upper basin, I think one other way to phrase that is less development of water use in the upper basin is something I think could very much be on the table versus more water. What I will say, the certainty piece didn't surprise me. I was actually pleased because I think we can go get that. You know, I said, we'll go get whatever you want. And I think we can get that because we need to know what the world below 1025 looks like. So that'll definitely be a focal area. But more importantly, is there a way to get to where we don't have to live in a world below 1025 on Lake Mead? And so the answer on the water markets transfers, being able to move water from where it is to where it's needed, and or I would preface that with as much voluntary and compensated and negotiated opportunities that lie there is a really important tool for the future. So I thought the poll came in with the top two being very, very pertinent issues for discussion and negotiation.
I'd jump in and just agree with that. I really think the certainty it drove DCP, right? It's driven the water discussion in Arizona for 5 years, maybe 10. And if you go back into the early 2000s, you know, just a couple of years into drought, we realized we had to have the interim operating criteria that we all authorized as the 7 basin states in 2007. So I really think that certainty will mean a lot and actually kind of frame out what development can happen on what is essentially a finite water supply. I think in particular around that certainty below 1025, I'm going to go back to that education piece. You know, we just went through DCP, and what does that mean? Well, really, at the end of the day, I think DCP means we almost eradicated what would be considered the lower basin structural deficit. And we're not really thinking of it that way. And I think it would be good to think about how we can build on that for the post 2026. So DCP like, but building on that. You know, a lot of pain with DCP, but we really got to understand that there will always be that structural deficit. We're supposed to have more water to fill all of our allocations, and we've really benefited from the upper basin releasing that. So that certainty is very important. Of course, water markets, exceptionally important, and I think we've seen those continue to develop. And I think talk a little bit more about that later, because gosh, I want the Navy. I mean, that's sexy. We'll get a lot of people working in the Arizona Navy, and all they have to do is a rotation in utilities for 6 months a year, and then they can, you know, fly an airplane over Lake Mead. So let's bring them back.
That's perfect.
You know,
go ahead. You go ahead.
Oh, I didn't want to step on you there. Go ahead.
I would just say, to add to that, you know, it's important to know what happens below 1025, because the story is not going to be pleasant about what happens below 1025. And, you know, to Jake's point, were it not for us knowing that we were facing a really not good future if we hadn't got DCP in there, not to solve the problems, because DCP didn't solve anything. All it did was just prolong things. It gave us some time to be able to work on this kind of stuff. But still, that's really what drove it, and what got a lot of people to say, you know what, I'm willing to accept something that I don't love, but I can deal with because I know that it's the best thing for everyone. And I think that's what we're going to have to get to. You know, there's been enough study, I think, out there to show that, like, yeah, the upper basin is going to play a huge role in this. You know, this can't just come from Arizona. You know, we can't be the ones that are like, sure, we'll take everything because we're the junior guys. Like, it's just, that's not going to work. We're going to have the upper basin playing along. And I think they're going to have to know how bad the future is, not just for us in the lower basin, but for them too, just to find those solutions.
And I just say that I would agree with the poll. The question of, you know, greater certainty is going to be paramount. But, you know, just from the tribal lens, for the clients that I work with and ITCA as well, there's a couple of, I mean, there's a lot of dynamics going on. Number one, tribes participated in getting solutions on DCP, for example. Mm-hmm. You saw that with the Gila River Indian community. You have tribes that engaged in system conservation and see themselves as, you know, for the longest time, tribes would say, you know, we want to have a seat at the table. They do, and they should. They have significant entitlements to the Colorado River, whether it be through CAP or the mainstream tribes. But in addition, they bring solutions. In the 2007 negotiations, tribes really weren't even invited to the table, so to speak. And now I think they are. And I think that's going to be super important. You see Colorado River Indian Tribe and the work they're doing. And you see other tribes saying, you know, how can we be part of that? And how do we get to be the ones that have a real say in these decisions that are being made, both within the state and then in the renegotiation. The other thing I would say when you come to water markets, and I think you're all going to talk about that a little later, it's like a two-edged sword, right? On the one hand, you know, tribes have said, tribal people will tell me, you know, and I'm not a tribal person, but I work with tribes, and they'll say, Sue, you know, commodifying water at your peril, right? Because they've seen what has happened, and they have history behind some of the things that they have seen, right? So they worry about that, but there's also recognition that there has to be flexibility with water, and we do need to have the ability to do more. And part of that, that we have 11 plus tribes out of the 22 tribes that do not have Indian water rights settlements, including, of course, the Navajo Nation and the Hopi tribe, but also other smaller tribes. Some of those have tribal CAP entitlements, that they do not have the ability to use in a flexible way. They have to use it on the reservation, absent any water rights settlement. So that's tying hands of the tribes where they could bring federal resources or have flexibility with their CAP entitlement that they don't have right now. The Pascua Yaqui tribe, of course, is very, very lucky to work with the city of Tucson, and the city of Tucson has been huge to allow the Pascua Yaqui tribe to store their CAP entitlement, and Tucson Water treats and wheels it to the reservation. That's a unique situation for a non-settled tribe. So all of those things are there, but it all comes back at the end of the day. Arizona needs to have its house in order before, in some ways, we can go out and tell the upper basin what to do.
Tempting though.
Yeah, sure.
So you know what, Mark, Susan, thank you. That is actually a really good segue to the next question. You know, as we all know, Arizona is facing a hotter and drier future. Competition for scarce water resources is only going to get worse. Agriculture uses 70% of the water in this state. At the same time, people continue to move here because it's awesome, right? It's a great place to live. All of this is happening at a time when our politics are really as fractured as most of us have ever seen in our lifetimes. And in the middle of all this, the town of Queen Creek initiated a transfer of main stem Colorado River water away from agriculture into central Arizona for the purposes of meeting future municipal demands. It stirred up a huge amount of controversy on all sides, and many different perspectives, all of them valid. It's basically cats versus dogs out there right now. What future do we see for water transfers and water markets here in Arizona? Is there room for growing cities, vibrant small towns, as well as a healthy agricultural industry? Super easy question. Who wants to start?
I can jump in, Catherine. I might be a little bit of a unique position here, but I think I try to be educational. And people often say the sky is falling. There's no water. Clearly, it's getting harder. There's less water available, and so on. And I really implore people to step back and think about Arizona's just Colorado River allocation. The Colorado River Compact was signed in 1922. Arizona, because it didn't like it, didn't sign it until 1944. And we sued California, of which we didn't get resolution until 64. So we're talking many, many years of real controversy, right? And we joke about the Arizona Navy, and we actually had one once, right? That actually did stuff. And the list of difficult water deals and transfers is gigantic. A lot of the SRP system, when what different parties did different things. We look at Plan 6 and the modifying the Roosevelt Dam, all very, very difficult conversations. Orm Dam, right? Never got built. I mean, we're talking some huge deals here, but we got through them. And at the end of the day, we've continued to do big deals. And I would say there has been a lot of hand-wringing and worry about the Colorado River transfers, but by and large, what's happening with Queen Creek and the on-river transfer, bringing that into central Arizona, it is rather peaceful, and it's rather civilized and going right through an established, well, I don't know how many times it's been used, but an approved AWWA policy. And honestly, I think it's actually looking promising for future Colorado River transfers. I think the speed of deals is actually going to move forward. I know I probably should have went last with that opinion, but I really like to be hopeful on where we're at with things. So I just wanted to just share that thought with you. Thank you.
Well, and Susan, as you know, the Colorado River Indian tribes are interested in the potential of marketing their water. So I don't know, do you have some reactions to this?
Well, they are. And I think that every tribe has that sovereign choice that they need to make and that they should make. So I can't speak on behalf of Colorado River Indian tribe for sure, but I would say that's a choice that they've chosen to make. The law of the river, of course, makes that very difficult. And so that's part of the thing we're living through. Talking about the signing of the compact, so many things have developed, but we can't let those be a straitjacket in terms of making decisions moving forward. And I think that's partly what Colorado River Indian Tribe is saying. Yes, opening up decree, the Arizona v. California decree, that they called it a Pandora's box, and we will not go there, right? That's what the United States Supreme Court said in some prior cases. But having said that, there has to be more flexibility, but is the answer exclusively kind of a water transfer, water market, or is it something else? Either way, I think we're going to have to find that out, and testing the bounds of what that law of the river is going to be very, very interesting. And I think the tribes are going to be some of the tribes are going to be a part of kind of testing that balance, and they have something to offer.
Tim, I'm going to ask you something everyone in Western Arizona wants to know, and that's when you're going to steal their water.
I think it's highly unlikely that Tucson would steal anyone's water. We just like to borrow it for a while and then return it to you for a small fee, just like we do with Phoenix. I think, will there be water transfers? I think we need to create a space where that can occur. And we already have one to some degree, but we have some things that have been put on the list of things that you can't touch, can't talk about, can't do. And I agree with Sue that we need to talk about those things. And so there's a kind of a profound debate right now about the value of the incremental changes. So the law of the river has expanded and contracted and through voluntary agreements gotten to places where strict interpretation would say, no, you can't do that. Oh, but if everybody agrees, you can. And so I think there's still a lot of value there. And I think a lot of the reconsultation process will hopefully explore those things and fall into those areas where we can make things happen that are the right outcomes and do it through those types of actions. But there's a number of voices saying, well, we need some kind of grand bargain. We need some kind of foundational change. And I think we need to keep the voices that we've got at the table convened, and we need to keep those that aren't at the table. We need to bring them to the table, and we need to allow the space for that conversation to occur without necessarily the threat of somebody's going to take my water away or somebody's going to do this. But can we find the space where, hey, if you got a willing seller and a willing buyer, and we can find a way to navigate that those conversations can occur. And that's easier said than done, but I think we gained a lot during the drought contingency plan. I think the way that came together, it honored all the contracts and all the legalities, but we still were able to move water from the Colorado River Indian tribes into Lake Mead. That allowed water from Lake Mead to move into central Arizona. That allowed, cities next year will probably be sending some water to Pinal Agriculture. And that was all because we got to a consensus on something. So long-winded way of saying there's incrementalism, there's foundational change, but sometimes incrementalism can have the net result of a foundational change.
So I'm sensing an acknowledgement of hard work, but a lot of optimism. And Joanna, I'd like to turn to you and say, do you share that optimism? And what do you think the future holds for transfers and kind of sharing the prosperity of the river among different sectors and communities?
Yeah, in this whole conversation, when you started it, I was like, do I need a helmet? Like, do I need to put on my helmet? I do think there's a lot of fear out there, and it's not totally unfounded fear. The on-river interests are just extremely fearful of not so much what the Queen Creek deal, say that 10 times fast, is gonna do to them right now, but what it might mean for the future. And it's not that there's not reason to be really freaked out about that. I mean, look at how many speculators there are that already own, tons of land, not just in Arizona, Colorado, California. I mean, there is potential for it to go very wrong. And when you say water market, it depends on who you're talking to, because there's some people, as soon as you say water market, they go, whoa, no, we don't do that, and you sort of hear like where there sort of is kind of a trading that's happening on water and stocks and all that kind of stuff that's happening in California, and people go, we don't do that, and we don't move water around. I think there is a lot of fear about what it means. And while I want to be optimistic and think that the partnerships can happen, and I mean, I'm the person that's been writing about all those things of like, let's stick together and do, what's right for the state. I do think that it is precarious. I do think that what the Interior Secretary ultimately decides, it's probably not going to be the last word in any of this. But I do think that it is a big test case for just where do we move forward in this, and can we do it where there is not so much fear that the worst case scenario could happen.
Everyone knows that I love to say that water is the foundation of public health, economic opportunity, and quality of life in every community. And so I think that rural communities in Western Arizona understand, very clearly what potential transfers look like and what that might do to their communities. And that is, it's a valid fear. And that's one that we all have to be careful of and work collaboratively towards resolving, however it ends up being resolved. You're right, it's an unbelievably tricky issue. Okay, I think we have time for one more audience poll, and then we'll get some quick reactions from the panel. So Susan, can you bring up the last poll, which is another word bubble? And I'm going to challenge the audience to throw out things that Arizona should be doing now to secure its water future. And while the audience is doing that, I will ask the panel members to think about that for their closing thoughts.
Is join AZ Water Association one of the possible choices?
It's my favorite.
I'm just tossing that one out there.
If the Navy's not on there, I don't know if you guys have been listening.
I'm waiting for the Village People song to come on. If we're gonna do some recruitment, we got to get in the Navy out going. I'm looking backstage. Anything? No? Okay.
I don't know, maybe people have gone to lunch. I don't know. Drilling wells. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, while that is running, and I'll encourage people to continue putting their answers in, but while they are doing that, Susan, why don't we start with you? Okay. What do you think we should be doing now to secure our water future?
Well,
easy.
That is a hard question you're asking this audience and you're asking the panel. My own personal opinion would be, and I've been only doing this for 20 years. And as you know, in Arizona, water buffaloes and those that practice are doing, my mentor's 80 and he's still practicing water law and Indian law. So they may have a longer vision, but groundwater pumping has to be addressed. It may not be a popular discussion in parts of Arizona, but the fact that outside the AMAs we have in many instances just totally unregulated groundwater pumping. I think that has to be addressed in some way. I know it's not politically palatable. I know that the legislature may not be as interested in it as one might hope. But I think it has to be addressed. I think we just can't continue to not even know how much we're pumping. I think that's a huge issue. And for tribal communities, that's an issue where groundwater affects on-reservation resources. And the other one, just from the tribal lens, I'd say is, we need to resolve the remaining 11 plus Indian water rights settlements in Arizona. That is a huge amount of unknown water. The tribes, of course, have federal reserve water rights, and it can result in a gallon per gallon reduction of non-Indian rights and junior rights. And so that has to be resolved. And Arizona, I think, needs to put its shoulder behind getting Indian water rights settlements, not imposing barriers to settlements, things like this, and get that kind of in the ledger so we know. And then, of course, what happens on the Colorado River is going to be huge for Arizona's future. So I would say of those, I think there's so many, but those are the three that I would talk about or put in this poll. And I do think conservation continues to be very important, but I don't think that's going to get us there in total.
Jake, what do you think?
Well, we talk really big all the time, and we're really thinking big picture and going out forward. And I was thinking about this earlier. What do we need to do? And I think we're really good at that. We're really good at looking out, as far as the headlights go and down that road and see what we need to do and identify it. We're also really good at looking in the rearview mirror and getting understanding what we have done, right? We're pretty good at patting ourselves on the back for DCP, the Groundwater Management Act, the Water Bank, the tribal settlements that have happened, right? But we often forget what's going on right in the middle, right in the cab. And I think I just want to mention this as kind of a departure from the big picture. And that's there's a lot of water issues ongoing in Arizona all the time. We do talk a little bit, and I'll springboard off of Sue's on groundwater pumping. We do talk about exempt wells, but we really talk about them in the extent that they're a problem for somebody else because they're depleting the aquifer for someone downstream. For example, the Verde Valley and so on. But we also have areas, in and around Phoenix, not the city proper, but the greater metro area. We have a lot of exempt wells. We have a lot of people who haul water. And we don't really talk about that as a water community. These are people that are kind of on their own. We have a lot of really small water utilities as well. And that's actually where we spend a little bit of our focus at Global Water. We bought a couple of small water utilities. I mentioned consolidation amongst employees, but also I think we as a greater water community got to look to our neighbors and think about how can we help them everybody be a more sophisticated water end user, if it's an exempt well or water hauling, or help connect those people, or even the smaller utilities where we can add sophistication, help them. I think we had cyber threats on one of the questions in there. I always think about Texas freezing. We have a lot of vulnerable small utility and folks that are right in the cab of the car with us. And they're not even able to look really down the road. And reflecting on the past thing, it's a bunch of regulations they got to adhere to get their water. And there may be an underserved area there. So I would say we gotta remain focused on some of the people and some of the areas of the state that still do have contemporary water problems. And just leave that out there for a challenge of all of us as water professionals to be neighborly and to think of those and think about how we can help out. I know a lot of utilities are helping out with water hauling stations and extending lines and other things. But I think we got to keep that on the front of our mind. That's really going to help Arizona excel over the long run.
Well said. So Tim, we'll go to you next.
So I'll start with 2 in 1, which is listen and learn. We talk a lot about educating others, educating the community, but as a water practitioner, I value the fact that my approach to things, my understanding of things, it continues to evolve. In my bio, we mentioned the fact that I'm in a PhD program right now. What spurred me to do that was the last time I had studied climate was 1991. And here I am running one of the largest water utilities in the state, and in the threat of climate change, and my understanding is, 25 years old. So I've taken 2 classes on climate, and I'm, that's part, what's rolling into my PhD. So it's that openness, I would say we all need to have, to that your understanding from 5 years ago is important, but it may not be the most important thing of what you need to be doing today or what you need to be planning for the future. So that listening and learning is a key piece. And then now just add the word investment to the conversation. We need to keep investing. We're never done. We might have certain communities that are in a place of high resiliency, high sustainability right now, but you've got, the work is never done. And so we've got to keep investing.
Interesting. All right, Joanna, bring it home for us.
Oh boy, that's a big one. I mean, it's so tempting to just be like, yeah, ditto. Because I wholeheartedly agree with everything that everyone else has said. I think probably maybe what I would focus on, and it's kind of something that Jake alluded to there, is that, you know, we tend to look about way out into the future or into the past, but we don't really look around what's happening in the present. And, you know, there are some things that are happening right now that I think people, as water professionals, you guys are the experts. You guys can come up with really super innovative solutions. So really, you know, dig in and invest in the Governor's Water Council, those committees, the local groundwater study committees, like the one that Jake is co-leading. Those are just really super important places. I know this isn't the first time we've had these discussions. I know in the past, not a lot has always come of those councils and committees and white paper reports and whatnot. But, you know, I think this one, it's important because there are a lot of people at the table that weren't there previously. And there's a lot of good discussion that's happening. And I think we're at this point now where we're discussing, and now we're started moving into this solution space. And that's where the rubber really hits the road, right? Is where we hit to the solution space. So if you're not involved in one of those committees, I would just say that is super important. Those working relationships, you know, that drove DCP, the working relationships that are going to drive everything else we do on reconsultation and water markets and groundwater pumping, and you name the issue here, it's going to be because people have relationships with each other. And even though they may see things in different ways, they can at least come to some sort of consensus to say, you know what, that's maybe not what I want. Maybe that's not totally in my best interest, but I can deal with that as long as it moves the state where we need to go. And so that would probably be my exaltation to everyone is just really dig into those processes that we're doing right now, because we're really at a pivotal point where they could become something that just sits on the shelf and collects dust, or they could really get this groundswell, you know, with having, luckily we have lawmakers on, you know, these committees and involved in them and invested in them. So, you know, make it, take the keys and make it what you can. That would be probably what I would say.
Well, I am going to thank each and every one of you. I think this has been an incredible panel, and we can't hear the audience, but I'm sure they are all applauding loudly. I am so grateful for your time and so grateful for your contribution to this important conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, panelists. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.